Hey kids, Dino the differential dinosaur back talking to you about growth and decay models. Now I got a question. What do you call it when a dinosaur gets into a car accident? A Tyrannosaurus Rex.
First thing we're talking about is a proportional rate of change. So we've dealt with proportional rates of change before. It would just be a differential equation where you have your rate of change that is proportional to, that means equals k times, and then some expression in terms of your variable that's in your rate of change over here. Now today specifically, we're dealing with a proportional rate of change where it's the rate of change of y with respect to x that's equal to k times y itself. Now this differential equation right here is broadly applicable, and it, along with its general solution, can be very helpful in determining population growth and radioactive decay, and we'll show you that later on. Next, let's talk about the exponential growth and decay model. So this says if y is a differentiable function of t such that y is greater than 0 and dy dt is equal to ky for some constant k, then y is equal to c times e to the kt, where c is the initial value of y and k is the proportionality constant. What you need to know is that this model right here is the general solution to our proportional rate of change. If we were to solve this for y, we would end up getting y is equal to c times e to the kt. And this particular model is what we use more often than this right here to help us find population growth or radioactive decay. Now the most important thing to note in this exponential growth and decay model would be the sign of your k value. If k is some positive number greater than 0, then your y value, your dependent variable, will experience exponential growth. It will increase exponentially. If your k value is negative, if it's some number less than 0, then your y value, your dependent variable, will experience exponential decay. So let me quickly show you the proof of the exponential growth and decay model. We told you that y is equal to c times e to the kt is just the general solution to this differential equation. But let me show you how this works. So we're going to solve this given differential equation. In order to solve a differential equation, we got to go through our steps. The first step is to separate the variables. We need to make sure we get all the t's on one side, all the y's on the other side. So we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by dt to get all of our t's to the right side of the equation. Over here, these dt's cancel each other out. And now we have all of our t's on the right side of the equation. But now we need to get this y to the other side of the equation. So how do we get that over here? Well, we're going to divide both sides by y, or multiply both sides by 1 over y. Over here, these are going to cancel each other out. And on this side, we just now have dy over y, or 1 over y times dy. Sweet, we have now successfully separated the variables. But you ask, what about the k? Where does k go? Well, k is just a constant. So technically, it can go on either side, but we usually leave it with our independent variable, with our t. So now, since we have separated the variables, we can move on to the next step, which is to prepare both sides for integration. So we're going to integrate both sides of this equation. On this side, looks like we're ready to go. If we integrate that, you just get ln of the absolute value of y plus c. Over here, we have a constant multiplied to dt, so you can take that constant, move it out front of the integral sign. Now this is ready to go. So let's integrate each of these. We said when we integrate over here, we get ln of the absolute value of y plus c. Over here, when we integrate dt, we just get t plus c. Distribute the k to the t and to the c, but k times a constant is still just going to be a constant, so we just leave that c. Now both sides technically have a c, but when you subtract that c that's over here to this side, we end up getting a constant minus a constant, which is still just one constant. So we just leave it as plus c on this side of our equation. Now, we need to solve for y. So how do we solve for y? Well, we need to cancel out this ln. So how do you cancel out an ln? You take the e of both sides. Here, e to the ln. Those two things cancel each other out. We just get the absolute value of y. That's why we did it. On this side, can we simplify this a little bit more? Well, if you remember our properties of exponents, if you multiply like bases, you add together the exponents. So if we want to go the other way, we know that e to the kt plus c would be e to the kt times e to the c. And I can take that e to the c and just move that in the front if I wanted to by the commutative property of multiplication. Now, we want to drop the absolute value bars over here, and when we do that, we get y is equal to, on the other side, we have to put plus or minus e to the c. Now, plus or minus e to the c, we have a constant being raised to a constant, meaning this whole thing we could just rewrite as some constant, because a constant raised to a constant is still a constant. And it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative, it's still just going to be some constant, either positive or negative. So this whole thing gets rewritten as this constant of integration. So we now have y is equal to c times e to the kt. There was no initial condition provided, so this is the general solution to our proportional rate of change here. And this is, in fact, the exponential growth and decay model we talked about earlier. One thing I want you to note here is that anytime you have a proportional rate of change, it doesn't even matter what the initial conditions are or the initial variables. If the derivative is proportional to the original amount, like it is here, the solution will be an exponential function. That's why the general solution to this differential equation is our exponential growth and decay model.
What do you call a blind dinosaur? Do you think he saw us? Example time.
Now, example 1 says the rate of change of y is proportional to y. When t is equal to 0, y is equal to 2. And when t is equal to 2, y is equal to 4. What is the value of y when t is equal to 3? So the first part of this question helps us out a bunch. It says the rate of change of y, so dy dx, is proportional to equals k times y. So we know that this problem is dealing with a proportional rate of change. And because of that, we can skip that whole process of solving this differential equation or finding the general solution. We already know what the general solution to this differential equation is. It's our growth and decay model. Y is equal to c times e to the kt. Now we can use this general solution and the initial conditions that have been provided in order to solve for our c value and our k value. Then we can use that particular solution to solve for y when t is equal to 3. So let's use one of our initial conditions to solve for c. The one that's always going to help you solve for c is when your independent variable t or x or whatever that is equal to 0. So this initial condition 0, 2, we're going to use that in order to solve for our c value. So we take 0, plug that in for t, we take 2, plug that in for y. And now we can solve for c. So how do we solve for c? Well, e to the k times 0 is just e to the 0, which is 1. And 1 times c is just c. So c is equal to 2. So all I have to do is take that 2, plug it in my general solution for that c value, and now I can use my second initial condition, 2, 4, in order to solve for my k value. So I take 2, plug that in for t, take 4, plug that in for y, and now I can solve for my k value. So e to the k times 2, that's e to the 2k. I then divide both sides by 2. I get e to the 2k is equal to 2. Well, I need to get this k out of the exponent. So how do I cancel out this e? Well, I take the natural log of both sides of this equation. When I do that over here, the ln of e, those two things cancel each other out, just leaving us with 2k. Now all I have to do to get k by itself is divide both sides by 2 or multiply both sides by half, plug this in my calculator, and I get that k is approximately equal to 0.3466. Now, technically, you want to leave it as exact as possible until you answer your question. You don't want to round too early. So I would use this if you're able to. If not, you can use this rounded version like I will right now. So because I have found my k value and my c value, I can take both of those, plug them into my general solution, and I now have the particular solution to my differential equation with these initial conditions. So I can use that particular solution in order to solve for y when t is equal to 3. So all I do is take my particular solution that I have now, plug in 3 for t, and I can solve for y. Plug this in my calculator, I get that y is approximately equal to 5.657 when we round to the nearest thousandth, which is what it wants you to do on the AP test. Now example 2 says polonium-214 has a half-life of 1.4 times 10 to the negative 4 seconds. If a sample has a mass of 50 milligrams, how long will it take for the sample to decay to 40 milligrams? So the very first things you notice in this question are that we're dealing with half-life and decay. So we need to use the exponential growth and decay model that we've been talking about. So we need to designate a variable. What is going to be the amount of polonium-214 remaining? We'll call it y. Now, because we're dealing with half-life and decay, we're technically dealing with the proportional rate of change. Now, this differential equation, we know if we were to solve that and find the general solution, it would be our exponential growth and decay model. So we don't even have to bother solving this. We know we're going to deal with this right here. So in order to use this growth and decay model, we need to figure out what is c and what is k. Well, they should give you some initial conditions to help you find those things out. So let's use one of our initial conditions to solve for c. The one that's always going to help you solve for c is when your independent variable t or x or whatever that is equal to 0. Well, it says if a sample has a mass of 50 milligrams. So it looks like we're starting with 50 milligrams and ending up with 40 milligrams. So if our starting value is 50 milligrams, that means we can say that at time t equals 0, there's 50 milligrams. So our initial condition here would be 0, 50. So all we have to do is plug in 0 for t, plug in 50 for y. If we do that, we can solve for c. So e to the k times 0 is just going to be e to the 0, which is 1. And 1 times c is just c. So c is equal to 50. We can take that, plug it in here in our general solution. But now we need to find k. So how do we find k? Well, we're going to use the half-life. So anytime you're given the half-life, that's just a sneaky way of giving us another initial condition. So a half-life is just another way of saying that you're going to start with some amount, and then after a specified amount of time, your half-life, your initial amount will be cut in half. So if we're taking 50 and plugging that in for c, what we can do is we can take the amount of time that our half-life is, which is 1.4 times 10 to the negative 4 seconds. We can plug that in for our time here, and we know that after that amount of time, our initial amount, 50, should be cut in half, meaning our y value over here should equal 25. That's what a half-life does. Now, the only variable that's remaining is this k, so we can multiply these two together and solve for k. So how do we solve for k? Well, we divide both sides by 25, and now we have to get k out of the exponent. So how do we cancel out this e? Well, we take the natural log of both sides of the equation. ln of e, those two things cancel each other out. We just get this decimal times k is equal to ln of 0.5. We then solve for k by dividing both sides by this decimal right here. Plug this in our calculator. We get k is approximately equal to negative 4,951 point this decimal. Now notice that k is negative, indicating exponential decay, so it looks like we're doing it right. Now that we have our k value and c value, we can take each of those, plug them into our general solution to make it our particular solution. And we can use that in order to answer this question, which wants us to figure out how long will it take for the sample to decay to 40 milligrams. So we're going to take our particular solution and we're going to plug in 40 for y, and then we can solve for t. That'll show us how long it takes to decay from 50 milligrams to 40 milligrams. So how do you solve this equation for t? Well, you divide both sides by 50, and then we need to get t out of the exponent. So the way we cancel out e is we take the natural log of both sides. Over here, ln of e, those two things cancel each other out. That's why we did it. And we just get this big number times t is equal to ln of 0.8. Divide both sides by this big number, we get t is approximately equal to this decimal. Now, what does this mean? It means that it'll take approximately 4.51 times 10 to the negative 5 seconds in order for our sample of 50 milligrams to decay to 40 milligrams. Now, one thing I want you to note would be this step right here. The reason I highlighted this step is because if you know it's a half-life problem, you can technically just jump right to this step. We know that 0.5 is going to equal e to the half-life times k every single time. So if you know it's a half-life problem, you can jump right to this step where it's 1/2 is equal to e to the half-life times k. Now, if that's confusing or it doesn't make sense, just do it exactly like we did it here. You'll still get the exact same answer.
What was the first car invented by dinosaurs? A Model T-Rex. You try.
Okay, this says 10 grams of this plutonium isotope were released in a nuclear accident. The rate of decay of the isotope is proportional to the mass of the isotope. If it has a half-life of 24,100 years, how long will it take for the 10 grams to decay to 1 gram? So again, the very first things you should notice in this problem would be the half-life and decay, meaning we're likely going to use our exponential growth and decay model. So the first thing we should do is establish a variable. We're going to let y represent the mass in grams of the plutonium, this isotope that's remaining. Now, because this says the rate of decay of the isotope is proportional to the mass of the isotope itself, we know that we are using this differential equation right here, this proportional rate of change, meaning we can use our exponential growth and decay model like we just said. Y is equal to c times e to the kt. So in this general solution of our proportional rate of change, we need to figure out what is c and what is k. Well, in order to figure out c and k, we got to use the initial conditions that were provided in this problem. So let's first solve for c. In order to solve for c, we need to look for whatever initial condition gives us an independent variable equal to 0, usually t or x. So when t is equal to 0, where is that in this problem? Well, it says how long will it take for 10 grams to decay to 1 gram? So that means we're going to start with 10 grams, meaning at time t equals 0, we're going to have 10 grams. So in order to find our c value, all we have to do is take 0, plug that in for our t in this general solution, take 10, plug that in for our y over here, and we can solve for c, our initial amount. And what happens is we have k times 0 in our exponent, which turns into 0, and e to the 0 we know is 1. 1 times c then is just c, so c is equal to 10. So we can take 10, plug that in for c in our general solution, and use that to help us find k now. Now, in order to find k, we need to look for another initial condition. Well, remember, the half-life is an initial condition in disguise, so we're going to use this half-life in order to find our k value. So how does that work? Well, again, we're going to take 10, plug that in for our c in our general solution. Now, a half-life is just how long it's going to take for some amount of this plutonium isotope to be cut in half, to decay to half of its original size. So if we're starting with an amount of 10 grams, that means that after this given half-life, we should end up with half of that amount, meaning we should go from 10 grams to 5 grams. So to find our k value, we're going to take our half-life, 24,100 years. We're going to plug that in for t. And we know after this given half-life, this initial amount of 10 grams is going to turn into 5 5 grams. So we're going to plug in 5 for y. Now we can solve for k. So how do we solve for k? Well, we multiply these two together. We just get 24,100k in our exponent. Then we need to get k all by itself over here. So we divide both sides by 10. We then have this equation, 0.5 or 1/2 is equal to e to the 24,100k. And we said, once you get good at half-life problems, you can skip all of these 3 steps and just go straight to this step. But until then, just keep plugging in like we have been doing. So now from here, we need to solve for k. So we need to get rid of this e. So how do we cancel out this e? We take the natural log of both sides. Over here, the ln of e, those two things cancel each other out. We get 24,100k is equal to ln of 0.5. To get k all by itself, we divide both sides by 24,100, and we end up getting k is approximately equal to negative point, this whole decimal right here. Now notice that k is negative, indicating exponential decay, so it looks like we're doing it right. Also note that you should technically use this expression right here as your k value if you want to be as accurate as possible. You usually don't want to round till the very end of the problem. But if you need to use it, you can use this. We're going to plug in this k value and this c value to our general solution to make it our particular solution. And now we can use that to answer the question, which is how long is it going to take for 10 grams to decay to 1 gram? So we plug in 10 for our c, this for our k. We plug in 1 for our y here, and we solve for t. That will then tell us how long it'll take for 10 grams to decay to 1 gram. So let's solve for t. To solve for t, we divide both sides by 10, take the natural log of both sides, cancel out that e. Over here, ln of e, those two things cancel each other out. We divide both sides by this decimal, and we get t is approximately equal to 80,059. Now, what does this mean? This means that it would take approximately 80,059 years in order for 10 grams of this plutonium isotope to decay to 1 gram. Now, example 3 says 1.5 grams of this radium isotope were discovered in the ceiling of your high school and dated to be 1,000 years old. If this radium isotope has a half-life of 1,599 years, what was the initial quantity of the isotope? So we are again dealing with half-life, which involves a proportional rate of change. So we can likely again use the exponential growth and decay model to help us answer this question. Now, in order to use that model, we need to first establish a variable. We're going to let y represent the mass in grams of this isotope that are remaining. And again, because half-life involves a proportional rate of change, that means we can use the general solution to this differential equation, the exponential growth and decay model, in order to help us answer this question. So in order to use the exponential growth and decay model, we need to find our constants, c and k. We need to turn this general solution into a particular solution. So how do we find these constants? We use the initial conditions provided. So which one do we want to find first? Well, typically we find c first. And we find c by using the initial condition where our independent variable, usually t or x, is equal to 0. That's going to be our initial quantity. Well, in this case, we actually aren't provided an initial quantity. Therefore, we can't solve for c first. That's what we're trying to find. Interesting. So then let's go ahead and find k. So how do we find k? Well, we use the half-life. And remember, half-life is just how long it's going to take for some amount of this radium isotope to be cut in half, to decay to half of its original size. So we're going to take this general solution here. We're going to plug in our half-life, this amount of years for t right here. And then for our c value, our initial amount, we don't know what it is yet. But to find k, we're going to choose some c value. When in doubt, I choose 1 because it's the easiest to work with. So I'm going to pick 1 to be my initial amount. I'm going to say there's 1 gram of this isotope. Now, after this given half-life, the initial amount of my isotope, this 1 gram, should be cut in half, meaning my y over here will equal 0.5. This will now allow me to solve for k. So all I have to do to solve for k now is just take the natural log of both sides. The ln and the e cancel each other out over here. I then divide both sides by this number, and I end up getting that k is approximately equal to this negative decimal right here. Again, k is negative, indicating exponential decay, meaning we're doing it correctly. So we have found k. We can take that, plug it into our general solution. Now we need to find c. What was the initial amount? What did we start with? Well, there has to be some other initial condition up here that could help us out. Well, it says 1.5 grams of the isotope were discovered and dated to be 1,000 years old, meaning we have an initial condition here. T would be 1,000 and 1.5 grams would be your y. So we can plug in 1,000 for t in our particular solution here with our k value plugged in, and we can plug in 1.5 for our y over here, and now solve for c, our initial amount. So since that's the only variable remaining, that's all we have to do. We just multiply these two numbers in the exponent here, divide both sides by e to that exponent, plug this in our calculator, and we get c is approximately equal to 2.3 ... meaning that the initial amount of this radium isotope was approximately 2.314 grams. Now, example 4 says an experimental population of fruit flies increases according to the law of exponential growth. There were 100 flies after the second day of the experiment, and 300 flies after the fourth day. Approximately how many flies were in the original population? So the most important thing that you see here would be this exponential growth, meaning we can use the exponential growth and decay model, y is equal to c times e to the kt. Now, in order to use that model, we need to first designate a variable. We're going to let y represent the number of flies at any time t. So because we're dealing with exponential growth, that means that we're dealing with a proportional rate of change, meaning we can use our exponential growth and decay model like we just said, y is equal to c times e to the kt. So in this general solution of our proportional rate of change, we need to figure out what is c and what is k. And the way we usually find those is by using the initial conditions provided. So typically we try to solve for c first, and in order to solve for c, we look for the initial condition up here where our independent variable, in this case t, is equal to 0. So do either of these initial conditions here have a time where t is equal to 0, our original amount of flies? No, actually. This one we have on the second day there were 100 flies, so that would technically be the point 2, 100. And over here we have on the fourth day there were 300 flies, so that would be the point 4, 300. So neither of those has an independent variable or t equal to 0, meaning we're unable to solve for c right off the bat. And that makes sense because this question is asking us to actually find c. That's the whole goal of this question. So we got to get there some other way. Let's see what we can do. So if we can't solve for c, we're going to solve for k. Can we do what we did in the last example? No, there's nothing here about half-life, so we can't use half-life in order to solve for this. So what do? Well, we need to use these two initial conditions, obviously, in order to solve for k. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use each of these initial conditions to set up two separate equations using this general solution. So I'm going to start with this general solution here, and I'm going to plug in my first initial condition, 2, 100. I'm going to plug in 2 for t, 100 for y. And now what I can do here is I can solve this equation for c. So I'm going to simplify in my exponent, divide both sides by e to the 2k, and I get c is equal to 100 over e to the 2k. So I have c in terms of k. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other initial condition. I'm going to plug in 4 for my t and 300 for my y, and I solve for c. So I simplify in my exponent, divide both sides by e to the 4k, and I get c is equal to 300 over e to the 4k. Now, why did I do this? Because what I've actually done is create a system of equations where I have c is equal to this and c is equal to this, meaning I can set each of these expressions now, 100 over e to the 2k and 300 over e to the 4k, equal to one another, and I can solve for k using substitution. So I now have created this equation that only has k in it, so I can solve for k. There's a bunch of different ways to solve this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by the least common denominator, which would be e to the 4k. If I multiply both sides by e to the 4k, over here the e to the 4k's cancel each other out. Over here, e to the 4k and e to the 2k, these actually simplify, giving us just e to the 2k. So I get 100 times e to the 2k over here, which is 100 e to the 2k. Now I can solve for k by dividing both sides by 100, taking the natural log of both sides, ln of e, those two things cancel each other out, and I just get 2k is equal to ln of the absolute value 3. I then divide both sides by 2 or multiply both sides by half, plug this in my calculator, I get k is approximately equal to 0.5493. Now note, k is positive, indicating that this population is experiencing exponential growth, which the problem indicates. So we're doing it right. Perfect. So now we can use this k value. We can plug that into our general solution here. And now that we have our k value, what we can do is we can take one of our initial conditions. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to take this one right here, 2, 100. I'm going to take 2, plug that in for t. I'm going to take 100, plug that in for y. And then the only variable that's left will be our c, and we can solve for c. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our general solution, plug in our k value that we found. We're going to take this initial condition, 2, 100. You could have used 4, 300. You get the same answer. I take 2, plug that in for t. I take 100, plug that in for y. And now I can solve for c. So I simplify in this exponent, divide both sides by e to that exponent, and I get c is approximately equal to 33 when I round to the nearest whole fruit fly, meaning that the original population was approximately 33 fruit flies. Now example 5 says 4 months after it stops advertising, a manufacturing company notices that its sales have dropped from 100,000 units per month to 80,000 units per month. The sales follow an exponential pattern of decline. What will the sales be after another 2 months? So again, the first thing you notice here is exponential pattern of decline or exponential decay, meaning we can use the exponential growth and decay model that we've been using. So the first thing we need to do is designate a variable. We're going to let y represent the number of sales at any time t. Now because the sales follow an exponential pattern of decline, we know that this indicates a proportional rate of change, meaning we should be able to use the general solution to this differential equation to help us solve this problem, the exponential growth and decay model. Now, in this exponential growth and decay model, we have two constants, C and K, that we need to find in order to use this model. So, which one do we find first? Well, we typically try to find C first. So, to find C, we look for an initial condition where the independent variable, in this case T, is equal to 0. So, are we given an initial amount of sales per month? Yes, we were given that the sales have dropped from 100,000 units per month to 80,000 units per month, meaning our initial condition would be at time t equals 0, we were selling 100,000 units. So 0, 100,000 is going to be our initial condition we use to solve for C. So we take our general solution here, we plug in 0 for t, 100,000 for y, and now we can solve for C because in our exponent here, k times 0 is going to be 0, and e to the 0 is 1. Therefore, 1 times C is just going to give us C, meaning C is equal to 100,000. So we can take that and plug it in our general solution up here. Next, we need to find K. So how do we find K? Well, there should be another initial condition up here that allows us to solve for K. Well, it says that 4 months after it stops advertising, the sales drop from 100,000 to 80,000 units per month, meaning at time t equals 4, these sales should be 80,000 units per month. So 4, 80,000 is going to be the second initial condition that allows us to solve for K. So we take this general solution with our C value that we just plugged in. We now plug in this other initial condition. 4 goes in for T, 80,000 goes in for Y, and we solve for K. So K times 4 is just 4K. We then divide both sides by 100,000. We take the ln of both sides to get K out of the exponent, ln of E. Those two things cancel each other out. We get 4K is equal to ln of 0.8. Divide both sides by 4 or multiply both sides by 1/4. Then plug this in your calculator. You get K is approximately equal to negative 0.0558. Now notice that K is negative, indicating exponential decay or an exponential decline, which is what is happening in this problem. So that checks out. We're doing it right. And now that we have found C and K, we can plug in each of those constants to their designated spot in the general solution to make it the particular solution, and we can answer the question, which was, what will the sales be after another 2 months? Now, this is the tricky part of this question because you want to plug 2 in for T, but T does not equal 2 because 4 months have already passed, and it's saying what will the sales be after another 2 months, meaning T will now be 6. So we're looking for 6 months after time T equals 0. What will the sales be? So we're going to take our particular solution that we have now, where we plugged in 100,000 for C, this for K, and we can plug in 6 for our T to find out the number of sales after 6 months. When we plug all of this in our calculator, we get Y, or the number of sales at time T or after 6 months, is approximately equal to 71,500 units per month.